us. I want to discuss all of this with Uzamaka Madu, a communications consultant who says that she is committed to making sure African perspectives are considered on global matters. Uzo, thank you so much for being with us. So really, when it comes to Africa, vaccine mandates in several of these countries, Ghana, South Africa, where it's being considered, Kenya, is that really the right approach to what's going on there?
Well, I think we have to look at the context, really. Vaccine mandates are really focused on dealing with vaccine hesitancy and apathy. And these are real challenges that translate into low vaccination rates on the continent. We've seen that recent studies in Ghana and Ethiopia found that fewer than 50% of health workers actually intend to get vaccinated. So if we're talking about dealing with the vaccine hesitancy and apathy, it does make some sense. However, the bigger issue, which we all know, is access. This is where Africa is facing huge challenges. And we've even heard from the Africa CDC head, Dr. Nkengasong, in response to the vaccine mandates across the continent. He supports the policies to get citizens vaccinated, but whenever they have an opportunity to have access to vaccines. And this is just not the case at the moment.
When you think about vaccine hesitancy and vaccine mandates trying to sort of combat the issue of vaccine hesitancy, could that backfire? I mean, if people are hesitant to take the vaccine and then you issue a mandate, won't it in some cases make them even more hesitant and even more reluctant to take the vaccines?
Yes, and I mean, we've seen some of the responses across the globe from trying to encourage vaccination or talking about mandatory vaccination, which has not been met most kindly. And I think we should still also really focus on the issue of access, because I'm referring to the issue of vaccine stockpiling by wealthy nations, and also just a failure to fairly distribute those resources, which have really fueled some of the outbreaks that we've also seen of COVID-19. And I think it's also noteworthy to say that wealthy countries have delivered only 14% of the doses promised to low and middle income countries by next September. So we can talk about mandatory vaccination, but if there is no access to these vaccines, then it's not going to make a whole lot of difference.
When it comes to encouraging Western nations to share their vaccines with the continent, with Africa, it's by and large out of Africa's control. I mean, they are powerless to force certain European countries and other countries to donate more of their vaccines. However, the one area where they do have some control over, I guess, is mandating vaccines when it comes to people who are vaccine hesitant. What would be the better way, especially in the wake of the Omicron variant, what would be the better way to really increase the uptick of vaccinations in these populations?
I would, to be honest, Zain, I would again go back to ensuring that those people that do want to be vaccinated can get vaccinated, because I don't, and we know from the figures that vaccine hesitancy is part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. If we talk about when the doses do even get to the continent as well, what about the cold storage? What about the supply chain? What about the manufacturing capabilities on the continent? Now, some of these are more longer term issues, but we really need to get a grip on some of the issues on the continent as well in terms of access, if we can expect people to be vaccinated who want to be vaccinated. I think there's a good example actually from South Africa, from the private sector. A financial advisory firm has said that it will make vaccines mandatory for its employees. Now, the vaccination rate went up from 22% to over 90% from that announcement alone. But they have access, right? They have access to the vaccine and they can take it. The 3 or 4%, I think, that haven't got vaccinated, they are hesitant. But it remains to be seen if they change their mind in January, when they actually follow up and they actually start applying the mandatory vaccination rule for this organisation.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that when it comes to vaccine hesitancy on the continent, that is such a small part of the much bigger issue, which is access to vaccines and then being able to adequately distribute those vaccines on the ground. But Uzo, we are out of time. Thank you so much for being on the program. Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye.